Morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
That's the good morning alarm.
Ah, I like it.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to What the Hell is Water? Today is December 17th.
Friday.
Friday. 2021. And today we have a very special guest with us, our son, Lincoln, the dog.
He's ready for his close-up. There you go.
One of the chiller dogs out there.
Well, you know, he loves couches.
One of the
This is where I lean.
most complimented things I've ever been around in my life.
Always.
I mean, you literally can't take the dude on a walk without someone saying something about him.
Yeah.
You know, whenever you first told me you wanted a collie, I was like, I don't know. The little long nose. I'm like, I don't know if he's that cute. But obviously.
Spoiler alert. It's cute. It's freaking cute.
Oh, well, good morning, Danielle. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing well. You know, last night was a fun night. Had a cousin in town, and we went out and got some cocktails, some proper cocktails at some nice bars downtown here, which was fun. Don't do that often. Where we go and get, you know, proper cocktail instead of just like a beer or like a, you know, a simple rum and coke or something. Get something that's got the craft to it. Yes. So that was fun. But yesterday on our show, what did we talk about yesterday?
So yesterday we had a theme of muse. So M was for menstruation and the moon cycle. And U was for, or was that the day before? Was that yesterday? That was yesterday.
That was yesterday.
Oh, nope.
No?
I don't know. Yeah, that was yesterday. Oh my goodness. The days.
Long day, huh?
Yeah, a lot happened yesterday.
Yeah, so you was ukulele,
and then sex and empathy. So yeah, we talked about the Stardust app that I use to track my cycle with the moon cycle. And in the recap from Wednesday, talked about space repetition and the difference between sympathy and empathy. Then the challenge was to apply empathy in your life today.
Yeah, and what did we talk about sex?
I
know one thing we talked about was that people should be having it and we shouldn't be ashamed of it. And we talked a little bit about how a lot of times in education or in religion and things like that, or parenting, a lot of times people kind of end up shaming it because they're, as one of our viewers said, fear of pregnancy, or fear of sex, not fear of pregnancy. And so people got so, you know, intense, like, oh, you shouldn't do this, you can't do that, you get pregnant, blah blah blah. And then like people get so like recoil and reaction that like they just, you know, shut down completely. So that was yesterday. Go check out yesterday to hear a little bit about menstruation, ukulele, sex, and empathy. Did you have any empathy moments yesterday? It's okay if you didn't, but
yeah, I would say I experienced I hung out with a group of very empathetic women, and we had our what did you call it? Holiday gathering. Did a white elephant, and that was really fun because one lady brought a lump of coal that was a big honking chunk of obsidian, so I stole it.
So now you got a big honking chunk.
Yes, it's over there actually.
You can grab it later.
Yes.
Well, cool. Well, so yeah, make sure if you guys did not get a chance to apply some of that empathy, make sure that you do that. That's probably one of the I don't know. I don't want to necessarily say easier, I guess, because it depends on how hard that might be for you. But it's one of our simpler challenges for sure. And it can be as simple as just asking a couple questions and trying to dive a little deeper and ask somebody a little bit more about what's really going on, how they're feeling, and then do your best to put yourself in their shoes. That's kind of the difference between empathy and sympathy. Is empathy is your changing your perspective. You're trying to look at it from their perspective. Whereas sympathy is you're kind of like you're with them and you're like, I'm sorry, but you're not putting yourself in their shoes. And we talked a little bit about the stems yesterday, and how M is different from sen or sim. So just a little bit of a teaser on yesterday's recap. So yeah, anything else from yesterday?
Well, there was another synchronicity that happened after the show yesterday because once again, pulled up Instagram and one of the sex therapists I follow, actually, that's what she was. She posted in her story about an exercise in empathy and how, like, she was talking about a viewer wrote in and asked a question, and basically she was saying, like, well, take a moment and think about how you would feel like if you were in that person's shoes, like explaining a little bit about their background and just think about, like, where did I come from? Why am I feeling this way? And also wanted to bring up that a great exercise in empathy, or a way to train empathy, is by reading novels where you are in the main character's mind and you're basically perspective taking from that main character's point of view. And that's, I can't remember where the study was done or if this is even a still quotable thing, but one of the reasons why I wanted to become an author was because novels and, like, reading fiction is one of the, I guess, tangible, like, practical ways to actually exercise and train greater empathy in yourself by taking that step.
Yeah, and I think we talked about that a little bit in our reading episode.
Oh, probably.
And the point of that was, and the reason why reading can be such a great exercise in empathy is because, when you watch a TV show or a movie or something like that, it's within a certain time frame and it's got a pacing to it, right? Things got to keep going. And also, obviously there are some TV shows and movies that do this, but a lot of TV shows and movies, they don't have you inside of the characters' heads, right? And so you don't get to hear the things that the person is thinking, what they're feeling, that type of stuff. Whereas with novels, that's very much often the thing, right? Is like you're reading about what this person is going through. You're seeing it literally from their perspective, and then you get to see how they feel and what they think. And then also, a lot of times in novels, some of the ones I like the best, they show the perspective from another person that hit that same situation, right? And a lot of times it's like, hey, both of these people, like, if you took it by itself, it seems like they're right, and it seems like they're justified in everything that they do, and it seems like, what's wrong with that other person, all those types of things. And then once you start to peel back and you look at it from the other perspective, you could almost say the same thing. And so that's another big point about empathy is like, hey, look, you two people can be right about something, or at least have the best interest in mind and things like that, but still kind of have that disconnect. And so sometimes practicing empathy can be a great way to, one, learn and understand a little bit more, but two, to get a little deeper and to make that better connection and that better communication.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, one other thing that we talked about when we were talking about empathy yesterday was how ecstasy, actually, one of the things about ecstasy has, after you take the drug, it floods your head with serotonin. It makes you very happy, makes you feel real good. And then a day or a couple days later, there's an effect where your all that serotonin goes away, and then your brain, it has to kind of rebalance. And so for that day or part of that day or whatnot, sometimes there can be a lack of serotonin, which can lead to people feeling kind of sad or depressed. And I talked about how, after I did that for the first time, that was kind of when it actually all clicked for me. And I was like, oh, this is what depression is like, I recognize that I'm sad. I recognize that I'm not in a good mood, but I can't change it. And like, even though I'm like wanting to do things and I recognize it, and I'm a very logical and rational person, and I was like, come on, and that's why, one of the worst, I don't know about one of the worst things, but a not helpful thing you can tell someone who's depressed is like, get through it or cheer up or whatever. And realistically, most of them are thinking in their head, if they don't say right back to you, is like, I wish I could, and so that was the tail end of our empathy discussion yesterday. And so I think that ties in a little nicely to today, when we talk about a couple of different things, which we will talk about after this intro. Helpful for life. Welcome back to What the Hell is Water. I'm Reed Garcia, founder and CEO of Helpful for Life.
And I'm Danielle Garcia, his wife.
His wife, huh? That's the title. I like
well,
it.
It rhymed with life, so then
Life, nice.
Yeah.
So today is December 17th, Friday, and we are going to talk about a handful of things. We are going to talk about marijuana, Disney, and quitting.
But not quitting marijuana or Disney.
Glad you straightened that out. Got to keep those priorities straight.
Yeah.
So which one of those would you like to start with first?
Well, I feel like right after we mentioned ecstasy before the intro, maybe we should start with our disclaimer.
Yes, good call. So
yes.
With the disclaimer, so I want to make sure that everyone out there is aware that this is all for informational and educational purposes only. We're not condoning anybody doing anything illegal or taking these illegal substances or things like that. However, if somebody was going to do these types of illegal substances, the best thing you could do, in our opinion, is to make sure you get educated on it, make sure that you stay as safe as you can, and make sure you pay a lot of attention to dosage and sourcing, and there are things you can do to test quality of things.
I was going to say, test your shit.
Yeah, you can test the stuff to make sure it is what you think it is, and that's not been cut with other things or changed or laced or any of those types of things. Unfortunately, that's one downside of a lot of drugs, is they are illegal in a lot of places, and that can lead to a lot of downsides, which we'll get into today. So the main disclaimer is, don't sue us, please.
And we can share a couple of websites that we found to kind of walk you through that evaluation process and say, like, if you are going to do these drugs, then here is the way to do them the most mindfully informed and safest way possible. So like for ecstasy, there's a site called Roll Safe, ROLL Safe. I think it's .net, .org.
I'll look it up.
Yeah, we'll share that. And then
.org.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Roll Safe, I'm reading off their website, is a MDMA education website. So for those of you who had not heard of ecstasy before, in case you've ever heard the term Molly before or MDMA, those are kind of different forms of the same type of drug. And so, yeah, and also it's worth noting that these are not, although oftentimes they are used, ecstasy is used recreationally, there are a lot of non-recreational benefits and therapy and things like that fortunately are now starting to be researched a lot more. But because of laws and things like that, it had not, in public perspective, they had not been researched that much up to this point. But the little bit of research that has been done on the ecstasy looks promising. And by the way, if you want to watch a fiction TV series that involves this type of thing,
yes.
you should check out the show 9 Perfect Strangers, which is also a book by Leanne Moriarty.
Yep.
Yeah, and the show is on HBO, Showtime,
so.
One of those premium networks.
Hulu?
Oh, I mean, Hulu is not a...
It might have been Hulu.
Yeah, okay, maybe it was. Well, you can look up. It's on Hulu, so there you go.
9 Perfect Strangers.
Original network. And it's got a
Nicole
Nicole
Kidman
Kidman
is
and
fantastic.
Melissa McCarthy, and it is, regardless of whether or not you care about the drug part, it's legitimately just a good show. I
It's
thought.
it's
Yeah,
very gripping.
yeah, it's a drama. I guess we can give the quick intro about what it is. It's a drama where 9 perfect strangers go to this health retreat, and it's at like this facility which kind of looks like almost like a spa type of thing. But everyone there is going with some struggles that are going on in their life, and they have this therapy. Some of it's alone, some of it's in group therapy, and they've never met each other before. And the lady who runs the therapy retreat, Nicole Kidman, the theory is she has selectively chosen each of these 9 people to where they kind of like help each other out, or they balance each other out, or they see what they need to see in the other person, or things like that. And so it's pretty cool, and there's a lot of interesting characters in there, and definitely some edge of your seat type of stuff.
Well, that book and show, it's like an exercise in empathy.
Yeah. So yeah, check that out if you guys are interested. It's 9 Perfect Strangers on Hulu. And then the website, just to make sure that we were just talking about, was rollsafe.org, which we will post both of those things in the chat here. So now that we've gotten that disclaimer out of the way and a little bit more information about MDMA ecstasy, what do you think about marijuana, Danielle?
I think it should be more legal than alcohol.
Really? Why is that?
Definitely. Well, I mean, I guess starting out with another disclaimer or background information. I actually did not smoke marijuana or any form of marijuana until I was like 24, 25 in California, where it was legal. And I got it Ubered to my doorstep like Uber Eats. But
Yeah.
it was Uber Flower.
That's not actually what it was called, though. Was
No, it wasn't. I'm trying to remember, but yeah, that was very fun first experience.
Yeah. No, and for me, I never tried marijuana until basically right before we were leaving California, because for those who aren't aware, I'm an electrical engineer by training, and a lot of the electrical engineering jobs, arguably a lot of the best electrical engineering jobs, are either contracted by or related to government work. And because of that, if you want to get what's called a clearance, so you can basically be privy to the government secrets, so you can work on these things. It's called working behind the wall. Then you have to go through an application process, a background check, and things like that. And as part of that, depending on the level you're going to, you might have to do a lie detector test. And they also, regardless of whether or not you have to do the lie detector test, they ask you what if you use drugs. And the thought process in my mind, at least, and I've never talked to anyone about why these questions exist, but the logical reason I can think that these things exist is because, if you're dealing with secrets, you don't want to have some drug addict who's going to basically sell those secrets to, anybody, or, so they can get more drugs, right? Or they can. So, for example, like, some guy from Russia comes over and he's like, "Hey, tell me about all the satellite secrets," and I'm like, "I don't know, man. I need my fix."
Or no, he's like, no talk of secrets. Here, just take a hit off this.
There you go. Yeah. So there's 2 kind of ways. It's like, one, are like people going to like sell the information? Are they going to have the incentives to, give that things away because they're so addicted to these drugs? Or another thing is, are they going to get so out of it that they're going to be at a party and be out of it and just be like, "Oh, the nuclear codes are 511, man."
Which I would also argue, spilling of secrets is something that happens much more when you're overindulging in alcohol.
Right. So to be frank, I think it's a little bit. I think those things need to be revisited.
Yes.
Yes. At the very least, maybe like done with statistical studies and things like that to see like, hey, are the reasons that we're avoiding this thing actually true, or are those just preconceived notions that we've had that we need to drop? Which, just like the government, I would encourage you guys to think those same things. If you're sitting here thinking like, "Oh, they're talking about drugs, this makes me uncomfortable. Why are they doing that? It's wrong, it's bad," all those types of things. Well, maybe it's a good time for you to reconsider. So that being said,
Maybe take a look at why the DARE program became a thing. I don't know. Like, I haven't done an extensive study of the history, but once again, it's like the fear of just the abstinence mindset of don't do drugs, say no to drugs, like just blanket statement of no. Well, people are still gonna do it. Some people are more likely to do it if you've told them not to. So I think, yeah, just more education about all sides of the drug, not just the fear and the bad things that you should avoid.
yeah, and if you're a parent, or if you're in a relationship, you might know that like the more you actually try and clamp down and restrict something, sometimes that can lead to bad things, like people, intentionally going against what you're wanting them to do, right? And so in the case of drugs, right, whether it's you as a parent or as a school or as a government or whatever, you're saying these things are really bad, don't ever do them. Well, especially in the case where it's like, all right, there's always going to be a group that is doing this type of thing. Well, now they have to go do it in the shadows. They have to go source it from, sketchy places. They have to be worried about all this type of stuff. They also may be involved, or by definition, with illegal activity, which could lead to, oh, well, these drugs now are coming from these things that might be gangs and stuff like that, and they have to be smuggled around, and then maybe guns get involved and all that kind of stuff. So, in my opinion, at least, most of the bad things about drugs comes from all of that type of thing, and not as much from the drug usage itself. But all of that being said, this isn't an endorsement to go out there and use all the drugs. It's just, hey, make sure that you're educating yourself about, one, the reasons why these things are so oppressed in the first place, and then two, like, okay, if someone was going to use these things, how can you do it in a safe way with the right dose? And then knowing what to expect. I feel like that's a really big thing when it comes to any kind of drug, including alcohol or caffeine, which, by the way, are also drugs. They just happen to be socially acceptable ones.
Yep.
Is to know, how can I use those in a safe way where the dosing and the timing is right. And I've been at plenty of bars and plenty of people's houses, and also felt guilty to it myself with alcohol, where that dosing and timing was not correct. So yeah. So a little bit of an aside there, but I was talking about how I was an electrical engineer, or I am an electrical engineer, and so a lot of my jobs had to be related to the government. And so I elected to not do any drugs until my mid-20s. And I was, because I was, all right, I'm going to probably get a clearance or try and get a job. And so even like high school all the way through college, never did anything. And that's not for not being around, right? But it's just, that was a choice I made. I'm like, all right, I'm just going to not do that for my career. Don't want to risk reward, right? Don't want to risk it for now. And then eventually, towards the tail end of my my stint doing that, or as an engineer, I was like, you know what? I don't want to do that anymore. I don't care about doing.
You quit instead.
I don't.
It ties in.
I don't care about doing the. That's a good point. I didn't even make that connection. But no, I didn't quit right away. I basically decided, like, you know what? I'm not going to do the government side of work anymore, and I'm not. I had actually been put in for a clearance, and it had taken like a long time, maybe over a year.
Yeah, like to schedule the interview.
Yeah, to get the interview scheduled and things like that, and then by the time they brought around the interview, I actually like scheduled it initially, and then I called back and was like, you know what? No, I'm gonna cancel that. I don't want to do that anymore. And it wasn't just about the drugs. It was also like, I just didn't want to. When you go work and behind the wall, is literally you have to go through separate doors, and you got to put your cell phone, lock it up, and then you're in that area with no contact to the outside.
And you can't answer all of your wife's nosy questions about what you're doing all day.
Yeah, and you can't share the things that you're working on, which, I was not really looking forward to. But the plus side of working behind the wall is a lot of times you get to work on some really cool stuff. So it wasn't an easy decision, but that's some of the factors that went into it for me. And then also part of it was like, hey, I had known at that point, I'm like, I think I'm going to be quitting sometime within the next year, a couple of years. And I was like, so it's especially not worth it for me to go ahead and get this clearance right now. And then after that, that's when I was like, oh, now I can do some drugs. And so then after that is when I tried some marijuana, and mushrooms and ecstasy. And those are all the drugs that I've done up to this point. So let's talk about marijuana. so now that we've got a little bit of the personal history about our views on it a little bit, and then also our just history with marijuana. So Danielle, it was very interesting because, again, Danielle grew up a little bit like more innocent and sheltered type of person.
Oh yeah, like Reed was like, it wasn't around for me. Yeah, like I had not seen marijuana. Like I was not invited to parties where there were drugs. Like like my circle of friends just like there was no peer pressure. There was no even pressure. There wasn't the opportunity. And then went to California where it was
opportunity abounded. Huh?
Yes, the land of opportunity.
Yeah, and so that was an interesting thing, for me, because it's like, oh, we started out and it was like, oh, Danielle's this innocent girl. She doesn't cuss. She is always on time, and she always does her homework, and she gets good grades.
And now I can smoke a blunt with the best of them.
And now she says things like that. And, if you're watching Danielle's parents, you're welcome. It's all my fault, No.
I made the, very conscious decision to people go get prescriptions for things all the time, like drugs. There's all sorts of drugs. And basically I was like, I have anxiety. I have, I get Charlie horse cramps, which marijuana is supposed to help with. And so, yeah, I talked to one of those Green Plus doctors and got my medical marijuana recommendation. I think that was 2016 or 2017. I think 2016. It was like when I was turning right around my 25th birthday, I think, because that was the birthday where I invited people to a happy hour, and then like everyone but 2 people didn't show up. And so then I went home and smoked a whole joint by myself. It was a great birthday.
Yeah. And, so yeah, it was interesting because at that time, recreational marijuana was not legal in California.
Correct.
It was just medical, but it was also like a little bit of a joke of the requirements for you to.
Well, because literally you could get prescribed marijuana for pretty much anything.
A laundry list of things.
A laundry list of
basically,
elements.
like you would go to a quote unquote doctor, and they would basically. You could tell them, be like, oh, I don't really need it. And then they would be like, oh, your knee hurts, right?
I mean, I don't know about that.
It wasn't that bad, but it was like, and there's an area called Venice Beach, a city. And,
oh, yeah.
And you're walking down the beach. It's like a boardwalk type of thing, a sidewalk along the beach with some shops, palm trees, wind in your hair, reggae music. Painting a picture for you guys out there. Mm-hmm. And as you walk down this beach, you look to your right. You look to your left, and you see Green Plus signs everywhere.
And someone outside saying, do you have glaucoma? No.
Basically. And so, yeah, so there's these little clinics, and they have this Green Plus sign to indicate that. So if you ever see a Green Plus sign, that's probably what it means. Not always, but oftentimes it's saying, because it's a play on like the red cross sign, which is for like health or hospitals or whatnot. Or the Red Cross. They use a green cross sign because, for those who aren't aware, marijuana is green. And yeah, just to make sure everyone's on the same page here, marijuana is a plant that is grown, and basically it has this stem like a plant, and then at the end of its leaves or whatever, it has these little buds, is what they're called. And so when you're talking about weed, sometimes people will say, oh, like, what type of weed do you want to have? Some people will say, oh, I'll have flower, because it's basically like a flower. I don't know if it's literally a flower off the top of my head. Sorry. But it comes in these little buds, and then you take those buds and you kind of tear them up or grind them up, and then you light them on fire and you inhale the smoke. And that's like the most basic way that marijuana is used. But nowadays, there's so many other forms of it. So we can talk about that in a second, but the last thing I wanted to say about the process was it was medical, but there are a lot of reasons why you can get a medical card. So if you live in a state while you've got a medical card and you're the type of person who's always a rules follower and you're always like, oh, well, I don't really need it. It's not really for me, all that type of stuff. Well,
like that's not even breaking a rule. Go out there.
Yeah, and go look at all the list of reasons that are accepted and see if any of them apply to you. And then of course it's up to you about whether or not it's ethical to, flub those forms or whatnot in order to get it. But that's, again, not something that we're going to condone. That's up for you to decide whether or not that's right. So that being said, so marijuana, we talked a little bit about how you got it back then, how you got started. So yeah, and when you started using it, I guess why or what did you think?
I liked it better than alcohol.
You liked it better than alcohol?
Yeah, well, because I've never blacked out from smoking marijuana. Like, whereas, yeah, I feel like alcohol, that is one of my struggles with it too. It's like, oh, you're just having a good time. Like, I just want to like keep this level of tipsy going. But then there's inevitably that one drink that put you over that line, and then blackout and memory loss. And I hate that. It's like I have FOMO from my own night.
Yeah.
Like.
And Danielle hates FOMO.
I know. Fear of missing out. A fear of missing out on my own memories that alcohol took from me. No.
Yeah, and seriously though, and honestly, so the thing about all drugs is they can, the reaction they have with a person can vary a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. And some of you who've been around a bunch of drunk people probably have seen some of the different ways that alcohol can affect people. There's different types of drunks, right? There's angry drunks, there's sleepy drunks, there's dancey drunks, there's
woo girl drunks.
There's let me take all my clothes off drunk. There's let me go make bad decisions drunk. There's really wobbly and walking around and saying words and stuff. Mm-hmm. Kind of went into like a 20s accent there.
Yeah, I don't know what that was.
Don't say, I'm just cigar here.
Make it a blunt.
There you go. Make it a blunt. But yeah, so I got a little distracted by myself.
Yeah.
But the FOMO, so the type of drunk that I am, unfortunately for me, is it's better than some types of drunk in my opinion. But I just get really sleepy, and I could tend to fall asleep. It's especially during college and in the years after that when I drank a lot. It was pretty much a running joke or question as to not when Reed will fall asleep, but where will he fall asleep? Will it be on the couch? Will it be at the table? And I'm like, I feel like it's a Dr. Seuss book.
Yeah. Can you find him in the bathroom, on the floor? Can you find him
on a door?
I don't know.
I don't know either. Yeah. But yeah, that's kind of how it was. And it was like, it was just a matter of time before I kind of did the droopy eyes and then kind of the head bob. And then, and then people were like, Reed. I'm like, oh. But yeah, I actually tended to agree. Once I started to do marijuana, I liked it better than alcohol. Now, I still really like alcohol, and some people may not believe me when I say this, but the main reason I drink alcohol now is for the taste. I really like craft beers. I really like craft cocktails. And I do get a buzz from alcohol every now and then as well. But for me, that's not really the main driver for it anymore. And that can vary for different people, right? So one of the things about alcohol is that it lets people kind of loosen up a little bit, be a little more social, things like that. And helps them, be around large groups, party, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, but with marijuana, really the main downsides of it I see come from, again, people being like judgy or the law being around it. Like some of the possible side effects or downsides of marijuana are paranoia, which historically speaking has been like, let's say that you went and you smoked and then you went out in public or whatever. And I had a story where one of my friends was telling me about how they went and got pizza and they were like, dude, I was high AF. And I went and ordered pizza, and it was the kind of place where you had to go and like pick up your food. And like I went and I picked up the wrong pizza, and then I saw the guy go afterwards and he saw that it wasn't his pizza, and I was like, oh no. and then they're like, this is basically like when you get the paranoid people, they're like, they know. No, they know, or I'm gonna get in trouble, or the cops or whatever. Like they just kind of start to be paranoid about that type of thing. And the nice thing about that is, if you're doing it in a safe environment, and especially if you're doing it in a way that's legal, then there's really, in my opinion, nothing really to be paranoid about, right?
I mean, I guess sometimes it could just like paranoia as a sense of like playing on everyday anxieties. So getting paranoid that because you're high that you're now having this awkward social interaction, or I'm going to say something weird, or is that person looking at me longer? Like, so I guess it could bring out like just getting paranoid about things that would normally make you anxious that you then like ruminate on. But also I've found that, at least for me, it helped my anxiety, because it was like, I think just the act of getting my medical card, and then once it was, legal, like just the act of partaking of something that high school Danielle would be like, who are you? It's kind of freeing, and like, yeah, I don't know where I was going with that exactly, but
No, that's good. You're providing some counterpoints, or some extra information about how other ways that paranoia might
yes.
set in or whatnot. But yeah, also another like side effect or whatever you want to say the term there for one of the feelings that marijuana can make you have is like I don't care that much. Like, and so it's like, yeah, maybe you get a little paranoid or worried about what other people are gonna think or whatnot, but then you're like, nah, whatever. I'm
Yeah.
having a good time. And
Yep.
that's my favorite thing about marijuana is marijuana, it puts you in a good mood and it makes you happy and it makes you have a good time. It makes you laugh more. And it's like, again, my main caution with drugs is frequency of use and dependency and dosage, right? So if you're ever using a drug, whether it's something completely legal, whether that could be like Tylenol or Motrin or sleeping pills or caffeine or alcohol, like whenever you're using a substance to like you're relying on it like a crutch or a wheelchair or a walker, if you need it to help you do the thing, then that's where it starts to get into the, in my mind at least, where it's like, hey, like that's maybe when you should start to talk to somebody and get some help and start working through those things that are causing you to lean on that drug so hard. But also is like, all right, that's where it's maybe time for you to take a step away for a little bit and reevaluate and like, all right, is this the best way to be doing this? And is this how you want to be doing it?
Everything in moderation.
Everything in moderation. Yeah. But that being said, like that's one of the beauties of marijuana is like you could be having like a horrible day and being in a horrible mood. And it can really help turn your day around. And that's why one of the benefits of it is, and also one of the big reasons why it has great medical applications, because it can help lift your spirits. It can help inspire your appetite, which can be a really big deal for example, with people who have chemotherapy and cancer and those types of things where they don't have chemotherapy. They do chemotherapy and radiation, where those and other drugs that you have to take for your medical reasons, that wasn't air quotes, those for your actual medical reasons, can suppress your appetite. And so that's one of the nice things about marijuana is it can do that. And also marijuana can provide pain relief as well. So if you have, especially if you have like chronic back pain or something like that, or so, again, something more intense, that's one of the applications of marijuana. So we probably could spend days and days talking about marijuana, but are there any other last things that you think we should share before we move on to the other couple topics? Cool. Well, this is just the tip of the iceberg. And the last thing I want to point out is, if you've never researched this at all and you don't know what it's like in your state, check it out, see what it is, because it's spreading more and more across the U.S. And its legality is becoming more and more legal in a lot of states, both recreationally and medically. There's a good chance that where you are in the U.S., you are probably not more than unless you're in Texas, because Texas is huge, but you're not more than a day drive from somewhere where it's legal, or a flight. And when in doubt, there's always Vegas.
Go to Colorado.
There's always Vegas, fun. Colorado, California, Oregon. I think Washington State too, and
there's a bunch in the Northeast.
A lot,
as well.
A lot in the Northeast, Canada. And of course, the classic
Canada
is like
fun.
Europe and Amsterdam and stuff like that. But the main message is it kind of depends on where your head's at, right? If you're someone who's like, oh, drugs are bad, never should do them, maybe revisit that and think about why is that? Why do you think that? And is that something that still holds true? And then also decide like, hey, even if it's not for me, like, do I need to be judging and do I need to be so against it?
That's what else I was going to say is that I feel like marijuana gets a bad rap in a lot of movies and shows, is like those who choose to smoke marijuana are the lazy stoners who are just wasting their life away on the couch. And another benefit that I've found of marijuana is I feel like it, as it uplifts your mood, it like activates creativity, and like I feel like I have different ideas when I'm smoking, and like there's it's really great for like brainstorming.
Yeah.
Because it removes the filter of like, I just feel like things can flow. And so I would love to just
it
smoke
can be
and write my book.
it can help you inspire creativity and things like that. In fact, we actually had a couple friends who their code word for going to use marijuana was, oh, we're going to innovate. You want to come over and innovate? And, they kind of did it tongue in cheek, kind of jokingly, but also like, they, talk about ideas and things like that. And I think that is another great thing about that, because, and which made me think of another thing that marijuana had helped with me, which was it helped me. Actually, it's funny because you're talking about anxiety and stuff like that. I found marijuana helped me, I guess, not care less or not think as much about like doing something before I did it. And the example for me actually came in video games, which may sound silly, but it's true. So there's a game called Rocket League I play where you drive a car and you're trying to hit a ball into a goal. And it's kind of like soccer with cars. However, in the rear of your car on your bumper, you have a rocket engine. So that's where the Rocket League comes from. And so you can use that to boost and go fast, but your car can also jump. And so you can jump up and then use your rocket engine to boost and fly around the air. So it's not just soccer on the ground, but it's soccer all the way through the sky as well.
4D space.
Yeah, that's how that works.
Sure.
And I'm going to have to play Rocket League on the show at some point.
Yeah,
so
well, I was going to
see.
say, and then we're also going to have a show where we talk about the like Delta 8 and Delta 10 and all of the like the forms of cannabis and how they're being legalized where.
Yeah, we'll talk a lot more about it.
Yeah.
Don't you worry your little heads. But the thing I was saying about Rocket League was there's, when I went to go try and do something, I like went to take a shot or try a special move or something like that. When I started to use marijuana while playing, I was like, oh, I started to go for things I would never try before. Or I was like, you know what? I didn't hesitate before I went and did that thing. And I played a lot better. And I was like, wow, I'm a lot better because I've now changed the brain chemistry going on right now to where I'm less in my head. And Rocket League is very much a muscle memory and reaction type of sport. You spend all this time like training yourself effectively to do things, and kind of like you would in a regular sport like baseball or basketball or something like that. Basketball, you're taking a shot. It's all about this repetitive motion and judging like how far am I to the basket? How hard do I need to throw it? How much do I use my legs? All those types of things, which if you're sitting there thinking every step of that way, like let's use basketball since more people can probably relate to that. How much do I push with my hand? How much do I flip my wrist? How much do I use my legs? Where do I square up to the basket? All of those things. And where am I in relation to the defender? If you're sitting there processing and trying to think all of that as
someone's
you're
gonna
doing
take the ball.
You what?
Someone will take the ball while you're still thinking there.
Yeah, you stand there, you're like, I can see like the little loading symbol. Just that's just how Danielle plays basketball.
Yeah, just go slap the ball out of people's hands. That's all I can do.
Yes, I'm laughing because Danielle.
I'm so uncoordinated.
One thing she did not do much growing up was team sports.
No team sports.
The sports
for
ball.
Me. Yeah.
And so imagining her, she's the kind of girl that and she's gotten much better now because you can't be in the Garcia family without getting a little sports rubbed off on you. But when I first threw her a football or something, I think it hit her in the head and then in the arm and then in the knee and then fell down. And then I think she fell down too.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. And trying to catch the ball off my own rebound, I'd like would probably fall to the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so picturing you running around the basketball court going, kapow, it was very amusing for me. Sorry for those who are like, why is he laughing so hard? It's just because I can picture that pretty good in my head. So another thing for me with marijuana was it allowed me to think those things less because, like with the basketball example, the best thing for you to do is you train those things and you focus, okay, maybe one day I'm really focusing on my wrist and the other day I'm really focusing on my legs. And you train it in practice, but then in the game, a lot of times the best thing to do is to get into your flow state where you're not thinking about it at all. You're just doing it. Another phrase we've said on here a couple of times is separating the do from the think. Yeah, so you do all that thinking and training and stuff in practice, but in the game, you just do it and you don't think about it. And one of the things that Rocket League has been really interesting for me is it's one of the most skilled and mechanically controlled games I've ever played, and actually that in my opinion has ever existed, because there's the only thing that's random in that game is when you are spawned into the game, where on the map you spawn. There's like, I don't know, 5 or 6 spots, and which one of those spots you spawn in. And you can also blow people up in the game. Like you can drive into them. If you drive into them when you're going super fast, you blow up their car, and then they spawn in again. But where they spawn, that's the only part that's random. Everything else is just based on what people are doing. And so it's a great analogy to life in a lot of ways, because a lot of people, it's funny to see how pissed off everyone gets and how much they start blaming everybody else. And they're like, oh, I got so unlucky there. And I'm like, no, you just positioned your car in the wrong way, and because of physics, it bounced off that way and went in the goal. Like that's what happened. Like it may seem like luck, but you weren't aware that went on. So yeah, we'll talk more about Rocket League another day too. I can't have marijuana come up and not mention that. And another great use of marijuana is music. Listening to music is a great pastime, and food. Oh my gosh, food tastes so much better.
Oh, and we talked about cooked with cannabis before.
We did talk about cooked with cannabis.
There you
so
go.
That's enough marijuana for today. Let's do a little bit of a quicker discussions on our next two, which were Disney and quitting. So let's talk about quitting first, because that's a little bit related to what we were talking about with marijuana, because not too long after I decided to not do the government job stuff anymore, and then I started to do some drugs, I quit not too long after that. And so that's how they're related for me. But for you, it's not related at all. But tell us about your quitting, Danielle. So how many jobs have you quit?
All of them.
Yeah, which is a great thing to point out. And of course, we want to make sure to point out, like, very privileged to be able to do that, right? To be in the situation where you can comfortably quit and have the financial security and factors in play to where you had that ability. But all of those factors in play, yeah. So you're now a quitter of, I don't know, 4 jobs, 5 jobs?
Do you count my temp jobs?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so while Danielle was looking for a couple of jobs while she was in between jobs, she actually did.
And then some jobs I quit twice. Because I quit when we were going to do the RV thing, and then they brought me back in. So then I had to quit again.
That's a good point.
And then...
But yeah, so in between a couple jobs while she counts, because she can't
like
count
8 or
while
9?
she's doing something else. So she's quit 8 or 9 jobs. She actually worked for a temp agency, which was an interesting thing. Another thing I don't know if you ever thought you might do, but it was probably we'll talk about that another day. But so why... So quitting, what comes to your mind when it comes to quitting?
I guess just the fact that I'm really proud of the fact that whenever I've quit a job, I've never not been 100% honest about why I'm quitting. Because in my mind, I'm like, I'm about to leave. Like I don't have any like skin left in this game. I might as well tell them exactly what I'm doing and what I'm thinking. And also another fun story was, my first job out of college was recruiting for an IT staffing firm, and I did that for 3 years. And then when I quit that job, I decided, well, maybe it was just for that, like the way that company did recruiting that I didn't like. And so I took another recruiting job where I was still in the training process for it, like literally the end of the second week, maybe. And I went into the elevator to go down for lunch with my boss, And she asked me, like, how's training going? And I just started crying in the elevator, like trapped with my boss because...
And it wasn't an aggressive
No,
question.
it wasn't. Like,
she
was so nice. She was just asking, like, how's it going? And I just started crying. So, and she was like, take the weekend to think about it. But if you come back on Monday and are thinking you want to quit, I will pay you $1,000 to walk away. And I was like, if I've ever asked for a sign from the universe if I should quit a job, that was a sign. So yeah, I got paid $1,000 to quit one time.
Yeah, and it's worth noting that, like, from the beginning with that company, though, you had spoken with them about your concerns, about why you had quit the job before, and the things you didn't like, and they were privy to all of that information, which is another thing that I highly encourage. And again, I recognize that there is a little bit of privilege that's involved in being able to turn down a job and also being able to quit a job. So I want to make sure I point that out. But, when you're in that interview process, a lot of people are like, oh, I'm not going to tell them what I really want or what I really think or what I'm looking for, things like that. But what ends up happening is then you don't get as good of a match because the company's not always completely honest about everything. You're not completely honest about everything, and you're not asking the tough questions, and you're not giving them the good information. Well, then you end up with this incongruency, this thing where it's like that doesn't really fit together. And then what happens a lot of times is now you're stuck with that for years and years and years and years. And even though it may be the harder decision to do sometimes, and again, like, no, not everyone can do this, but if you're able to, well, make sure you're open and honest in these interviews, especially as you get into the mid and later career. I mean, that's the thing about interviewing is and trying to get a job is the more skills and the more stuff that you have built up make you a better grab. You have a little bit more of the negotiating power because it's like, oh, well, why do you want me, company, right? Versus, especially for a lot of people getting their first job.
It's like, oh, please hire me. Please want me. What can I do to make myself appear in this interview like whatever the candidate they want me to be?
Right.
Whereas seeing interviews as a two-way street,
and that's a big thing. Seeing the interview as a two-way street where you are also interviewing the company to find out if they're a match for you. So
I want to work for this company? And
I would encourage you guys, even if you are a first-time hire or whatnot, and you don't think that you're so scared about getting the job and all that kind of stuff, ask a couple questions about the company and their culture and what they're looking for and what are they going to do for you in the long term, and what about career growth and all that type of stuff. All topics I'm sure we're going to talk about later as well, but just a little tidbit in there for you. So as you're quitting this second job, you end up getting paid out, which is awesome. And for those who are like, well, why would they do that? Well, hiring is a very expensive thing to do. People don't necessarily realize it, but I want to say the cost is estimated somewhere between $30,000 and $50,000 to hire somebody. And there's a lot of factors at play that go into that. It's like, okay, well, one, you got to spend time and effort and money, like searching for people. You potentially maybe have to pay recruiters. You have to spend time doing interviews and all that kind of stuff. And then also there's training that you got to do where it's like you're effectively paying this person, but they're not meaningfully contributing to your company's revenue or anything at that point. So there's a lot of cost there. And some of it's like very much like in your face, you can see it. And some of it's a little bit more like just time that's converted into money and things like that. And then there's also the possibility that someone's going to quit. And if you spend all this time and effort training this person up and then that person quits, well, then you got to start over again, right? And so that's what this company recognizes. Like, all right, well, clearly we're not sure here. And also knowing the information they already knew about your previous job, it was like, hey, all right, well, let's cut it off here and let's stop this now. Because there's really no reason for us to go on for multiple weeks after this or months after this, and you decide later on if already your gut says like this isn't the thing for you. Because guess what? They'd be paying you thousands and thousands of dollars then.
Right.
So paying you $1,000 now, where they can get you decided, and then they can get the next person on. Like, it makes sense. So
yes, especially where that job was it was a 6-month period where you didn't have to earn off of your commission. They basically guaranteed a salary for those 6 months while you were in training and building up your commission. And then at 6 months you would switch over. So it would especially have been bad, in their mind, if someone completes that 6 months and then quits, then it's literally like, oh yeah, we just paid you all of this blanket to train and quit.
Right. So why don't you tell me another one of the fun stories about when you quit a job, and maybe some what the other people in the company thought or said or did.
Oh, well, the day I quit my first recruiting job was pretty fun because at that time I was the second most tenured recruiter on the team. There was only one person who had been there longer than me. And then in the morning meeting, I was remote and from the rest of my team. So like dialed into their meeting.
You're a trendsetter. Man, that was like way long ago.
I
You were
know.
remote before it was cool.
You know? And then basically announced on that day's meeting that it would be my last day with the company. And then the more senior recruiter than I quit on the spot and walked out. So now my superpower is quitting and inspiring other people to quit too.
Yeah, so tell a little more about why they quit.
Well, I think it was a lot of the same grievances that I had with management, and basically I don't, maybe I'm embellishing the story at this point. I feel like I should give that disclaimer, especially with you always calling out my bullshit, but I think he said something to the effect of, hey, if y'all are losing Danielle, then like that's just a sign that this team is going downhill.
Yeah, I'll give a little more context because I remember, and I do not think you're embellishing it because I remember when you told me this, and it was right after it happened. But yeah, with that job, that was a job where you were performing very well and you were making money for the company, and you actually had been awarded for that type of thing or rewarded. And there's something called the President's Club, which is where they say, hey, if you meet these goals, and basically you are saying that you're making the company a whole bunch of money, which as a recruiter, you're literally, like the way it worked was you hired somebody, say for $100 an hour, or the client's going to pay you $100 an hour for somebody, and then you sign that person to work for, say, $60 an hour, and then but that $40 extra an hour, some of that went to you as the recruiter, and then the rest of that went to your company. And so that company is literally making whatever, $35 an hour.
You could literally see every week the candidates that you had placed at clients, like how much they were making on a weekly basis. Like it was called your spread. So every week, like the leaderboards would come out of all the recruiters and like, oh, my candidates are making the company $10,000 this week. And like, yeah, you were not making that much.
Right. And so that was the thing is like, objectively speaking, Danielle was doing a good job. And I think what'd you miss of the quarters you were there? One quarter out of
and
like
it was
12?
the one quarter that the entire team, no one hit their bonus because we were put on this stupid project for the entire quarter. And
we'll have some more stories another day. But the point was with that was Danielle was doing very well, but she was not happy with the way that they were trying to manage. And they basically treated you like children. And they said, hey, if you're going to be later than 8 o'clock, like literally if you're going to roll in at 8:01, 8:02, you need to call in and say why and call us and let us know. And there was one time I remember they wanted you to send a wrap-up email every day of what you did, which is fine. You know, that can make sense in some cases. But you sent that email one day at 4:46, and the guy wrote back.
Or like 4:50 something.
And the guy wrote back, is like, it's not 5 o'clock yet. What are you doing?
And so I just changed my email to automatically send at 5. Like,
right, which is the type of behavior you inspire. So again, it's like you try and clamp down, you try and be super strict, and you think it's going to be better, but really it just encourages people to get creative, and it doesn't have the effect you want. And the other thing too was metrics. You know, for those who aren't aware, when you have a metric, that drives a certain type of behavior, and metrics can be good, you know, and if things aren't measured, then they may not be improved, but they can also lead to bad behaviors. And one of the metrics you had was, you have to get 40 calls a day or something like that.
Yeah.
And there were days where Danielle was not hitting her calls numbers, and they would get onto her, and she's like, yeah, because I was on the phone with a candidate that we hired and is making this company money. And so therefore my call is longer, and I'm therefore not able to make as many calls. And by the way, this 40 calls a day led to behavior like people would be calling their mom, or they would call their old cell phone or whatever, and they would find all these tricks to get their call numbers up. And so again, it's like, all right, it's about culture and metrics and what you're pushing for. But anyways, the main point was Danielle didn't really like her job for these reasons and other ones.
When people became metrics, because I feel like in the staffing industry where it's like you're judged on, my product as a recruiter is my candidate. And people are unpredictable, and you can't help it all the time if that candidate doesn't show up for the interview because their kid was sick and their car broke down and, human reasons. And then, but if anything like that happened, it was my fault for not asking enough questions, for not locking down the candidate into their interview well enough. And it's like, I'm tired of being held responsible for ultimately things that I can't control. And also, like, I got that job because I wanted to help people, like, just find jobs and find their dream job and, like, be a career coach of some sorts. And then it was just like, no, I'm just calling a bunch of people to ask about these whatever.
It was much more focused on the companies.
Like people were numbers to the company. And so I wanted to change jobs within the company to do something more like helping recruiters on the internal side, like not be the sales or the like bonus based. I want to just be a salaried internal person, like just working with other people in the company, but they kept delaying.
Yeah. So the short story on that part was basically Danielle was unhappy and
Asked
she
for a
had
change.
XYZ complaints and suggestions for improvement. And then also she said, hey, I actually would like a completely different role.
I'll take a pay cut.
And I'll even take a pay cut. Like she said all of these things and she communicated these things to the company for months. And
like, literally, it was at the mid-year review in June or July where I'd said I want to switch jobs. And then this was November where they were still telling me, no, maybe we'll find you a new job in January, but you got to push through the end of the year and you have to hit your numbers in December and like run through the tape. I was like, if one more manager tells me to run through the fucking tape. Anyways, there you go.
Some memories and emotions there still, huh?
Oh, yeah. You start bringing it all up and you're like, oh, maybe I'm still bitter about this.
Run through the tape, meaning like get to the finish line.
Yeah,
run through
like,
the tape.
like you can't not give an effort now just because like you want a new job. Like you've gotta.
Yeah.
And I was like, I hit my bonus in October. I thought I was proving to you that I am willing to work and still.
Yeah.
No.
So you were telling them I need to change.
And then of course they offer me a start date for a new job after I quit.
Ah, nice.
They're like, oh, we'll definitely get you this new position by this date in January. And I was like, no, it's fine.
No, too late.
Yep.
Too little, too late. And that was why that guy. He quit because he knew you about these things and y'all had probably talked about it before, and you'd be like, look, I gave you guys every opportunity, and oh, by the way, that whole time I was making you all of this money and you guys didn't care enough to make any changes or to move me into a different position, then I'm out of here. And he was like, yeah, if you guys aren't going to do that, then I don't want to work for this company. And so that was the...
And then, I think he went and started his own like recruiting company.
Yeah.
So
and there was
more power to him.
And we won't tell the story of this one for sake of time, but your other job too, after you quit that one, other people started to reconsider as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so Danielle is, she gives the companies chances and she tells them the things. And then when she quits, sometimes people are like, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Inspire.
Yeah, I feel like companies hate me. I never should go back to corporate. I won't be allowed.
Well, I think that's let's put a pin in the quitting let's quit quitting for today. Do you have any other last thoughts that you'd like to share about quitting?
No, but now my brain's going to, how did Disney tie in the first place? And maybe we just put a pin in that one too.
Well, I'm going to give you a Disney speed round so we can make sure to get something in there for you. But,
okay. But
for the quitting, the last thing I want to say is I want to make sure to encourage everybody to be honest. And even if that means you need to go to a third party, there's this thing called HR. And,
exit interviews.
Yeah.
Do the exit interview.
Yeah. Don't
be
like
honest.
A lot of people they just like, oh, I don't want to make a fuss or I don't want to cause waves or whatever. But yeah.
Do it for those you're leaving behind,
do
the
it
people
for
that
other
will
people.
come after you.
Yeah, exactly. And because if nobody ever says anything, then no change is ever going to get made. And think about how much time you spent at that job and how miserable you were. And then say, by you not saying something, you're effectively, not wishing that upon somebody else, but you're allowing that to happen to other people. And if you're quitting for real, legitimate reasons, then there's probably other people who are negatively affected by those same reasons that you could potentially help by bringing something up. And of course, there are the type of companies where it's like, no, there's no way, this is not going to help anything. But still, well,
and also it's totally fine to be like, you know what, I'm just done, and to not want to go into the exit interview.
I guess I don't look down on people who don't say things right, but I also would encourage people to say more and to say things. And also, guess what? It can feel good and it can be vindicating, especially if someone's like actually listening to you and taking notes, like, and you tell them, like, again, like, here are all of the reasons. And especially if you're quitting because of a specific person, like, that is a very valid time. I've had friends tell me, like, yeah, like, this person is horrible. Nobody likes them, but nobody ever says anything about them. And actually, somebody quit the job and came to them and said, "Hey, will you go to HR? Because nobody who works here wants to go to HR. But now that you're quitting, would you go say something? Because people don't like this person and they make a toxic environment." And it's like, well, yeah, if nobody ever says anything, that person stays around. And so that's the value of saying something, is that you help that from happening elsewhere. Yes. And then also by you talking about it and talking it through and voicing it, and you can also write these things out too if that's more comfortable for you. It helps you better understand yourself and why you quit. And so you can use those things to go to your next job. And you say, hey, here's all the things that I didn't like about this job and I would like to try and avoid. And at the end of the day, no job is perfect. There's always going to be downsides. But that's one of the values of when you quit, is analyzing yourself. Okay, why am I quitting? What are the factors that I didn't like? Or what are the factors that I did like about this job? And so you can take those and you can go forward into the future. And actually, we have an exercise that we've created. It's a two-part exercise. One is called the past job assessment, and the other one is called job opportunity rubric. And basically the stint of the exercise is, step one is look at all of your past jobs that you've had, and that could also include things like volunteering or organizations you're involved in. It doesn't have to strictly be, oh, this is a job I did where I'm paid. But you basically go one by one and you look at all those things, and that, by the way, that go all the way back to when I was, even if you're flipping burgers or whatever, like, and you say, what did I like about this thing? What did I hate about this thing? What did I love about this thing? What did I just kind of like about it? And you assess all of those things. And that's step one. So you get a history of what you were at and what you thought about all these things. And then the next step is to look into the future and say, hey, here are the non-negotiables that I have to have. If I don't have these things, then I'm not going to accept that job. And that's why it's called a rubric, because it's what you're grading all of your opportunities by. And you say, okay, a job has to have the ability for me to work remote at least some percentage of the time. If that's a line in the sand I'm going to draw, then I'm going to put in that it has to have. And then there's the would be nice to have column.
A wish list, if you will.
And then there's the I don't want it to have, and I'm missing up the exact wording.
Yeah.
And then there's the if it has this, I'm not going to go there. Like the negative thing is, like, for example,
deal breaker.
Deal breaker, yeah. It's like, oh, if they have an extremely strict time where I've got to be there 8 to 5, I'm not going to do that. And so what you do is you take all of that history that you just did, and then you kind of turn it into this rubric for you to grade all of your future opportunities by. And then when you're going through all of your job possibilities, you're looking through the listings and stuff like that, you can use that as, a rubric. And you say, oh, well, this job, it meets, most of those things, but it doesn't do that. So I'm gonna consider that one. But, oh, this one's actually, it meets all the things. That's great. Or, oh, this one, I really like all of this stuff, but they're not going to let me work remotely. And I said that was one of my have to have. So I'm going to put that one aside. And so it allows you, again, to separate the do from the think. So you think in advance, you reflect on all the things you have done, and you think about what your ideal looks like and what you want to have and what you need to have. And then you use that to grade all of your opportunities. So that is something that we'll include links to later. I don't have those links handy, but that is a very valuable exercise to do. And we'll talk a little bit more about that some other time, and maybe have some specific videos just on that.
Yeah.
So
that can be the challenge for today.
No, not for today, because I've got to go dig that up and do some work. But thank you for the idea.
Well.
So Disney.
Yes.
Last thing about Disney. I'm gonna just say some words, and I need you to respond right away. Disney lightning round.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Ready.
Favorite movie?
Beauty and the Beast.
Favorite character?
Belle.
Least favorite character?
Oh, I don't like least favorites.
This is lightning.
Ursula?
Favorite villain?
Ooh, the purple lady from Emperor's New Groove.
She's fun.
Yzma? I don't know.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that.
Favorite remake?
Beauty and the Beast live action with Emma Watson.
Least favorite remake?
Oh, man. I'm not doing so good at this lightning thing. What is I don't know.
Pick one.
Oh, well, I don't know if it counts, but all the Star Wars. They need to stop making Star Wars.
I like it. Yeah, I guess that is under the Disney thing. Childhood memory related to Disney.
Saturday marathons with my sister.
Non-movie Disney.
Just like listening to the soundtracks while I went to sleep on my little cassette player on my nightstand.
Disney Channel original movie.
Smart House, but it was on my mind because you said it the other day.
Oh,
but
good.
I actually really did like that one. That was one of my favorites.
Got you primed there.
Yeah.
Disney Channel show.
Proud Family, maybe.
Oh.
That was the first one that popped in my mind. So.
Nice. You remember the jingle or song?
Oh gosh. It'll come to me.
Proud Family. No, I don't know. I'll have to look that one up.
Yeah.
Favorite non-Disney princess Disney thing?
Monsters Inc. Probably.
Oh, that's Disney?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Mike Wazowski.
Yeah. That was just such a great concept. Like the whole well, this is not a spoiler. If you haven't seen Monsters Inc. by this point, laughter being the better generator than fear was oh, such a great message.
Yeah, and also it's
a great twist.
It's a nice little perspective shift and talk about empathy and
Yeah.
stuff like that. The whole premise of it is it's called Monsters Inc. because this is the job that all these monsters go to do where they open these magical doors that take them into, children's closets so they can go scare them at night.
And
right?
collect the energy.
And collect the energy that comes from their screams.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so it's oh, what would it be like to be a monster? So it is a fun little perspective shift.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a cute movie and makes you feel
Boo.
good and it's funny.
Boo is so good.
Yeah. All right. Favorite, or Disneyland, Disney World.
Disney World.
Favorite park within Disney World.
MGM.
Favorite
Well,
ride?
Hollywood Studios. Tower of Terror. Which is not even a Tower of Terror.
Second favorite ride?
anymore. Rock and Roller Coaster. Which is right next to the Tower of Terror, so you just go back and forth.
Favorite food.
Oh, the brown derby Cobb salad.
Ooh.
And their rolls were pretty good.
Uh,
It's been a long time since I had the rolls, though, but I've made the salad multiple times.
all right, last thing, and then we will sign off. Tell people about the Disney Survival Challenge.
Ooh,
The
okay.
Disney Survival Challenge.
Yes. So
Survivor,
yeah. My aunt and uncle, from the time my sister and my cousin and I were in elementary school, they would have us over to do Survivor sleepovers where, I don't know if we did 2 or 3, maybe more over the course of the years, but there was always a food challenge where we'd have to eat something gross. So one year, I think the first year, it was diaper pudding, where it was vegetables and chocolate pudding.
Yummy.
And then our next sleepover, it was pizza, and you got more points the more gross stuff you put on your pizza. So anchovies were the most points, and then there was a whole list of basically check the boxes and added up your score for your pizza. And then so when we did the Disney sleepover, it was for I was graduating college, my sister's graduating high school, cousin graduating high school. It was graduation, about to have a bunch of change in our lives. Let's do this Disney Survivor Challenge. So my aunt and uncle, cousin and sister, and I went to Disney World, and it was a multi-day challenge where every day we had some sort of gross Asian market snack food that we had to eat while we were in line for a ride. So there was dried sardines and sesame, some other kind of fish, and then
pickled eggs or something.
yeah, there was a pickled quail egg that only my sister ate. Yeah. Wasabi peas was the first night where you just had to like keep popping peas.
Pop those peas.
Yeah, and it was like, now put 2 in your mouth at once. Put 2 in your mouth. And then it was like, I can't chew and swallow this fast. I was the first one out of that challenge. Surprise, surprise. And then there was also points, like there were 4 different categories, I think. So there were rides, there were taking pictures, like a scavenger hunt, finding different things to take pictures of, pin trading at Disney World, which I hadn't done before that trip. But
so to be clear, like a pin, yeah.
Yes, you wear a lanyard, and then you put your pins through your lanyard, and then you can go up to any of the...
This is like a PIN pin.
Correct.
It's like got a little image or character or scene or something
They're
on it.
They're collectible.
It's like, an inch by inch big kind of thing.
Yes.
And then you pin it onto your lanyard. Mm-hmm. They're collectible pins, and you trade them.
Yep. And if you're going up to a Disney employee, they think they must trade with you. Like whatever pin you offer them and whatever pin you point at, they must swap with you. So yeah, and then we had like different categories of pins that we were trying to collect. So like I wanted Beauty and the Beast pins because it was my favorite movie, and then my sister was going for Toy Story. So yeah, I think that was. Oh, and then there was an immunity idol that we had to find. I think originally I found it, and then I used it on one of the food challenges, and then anyways.
Yeah, so it
was multifaceted.
It was a combination
Survivor
of
challenge.
The show Survivor meets
Yes.
Disney World meets fun trip with the nieces and the aunt and uncle, and it sounded like a really fun time. Y'all had T-shirts and stuff like that
and
too.
Jackets and personas.
So for someone who's an adult and has never really engaged with Disney,
Mm-hmm.
why should they engage with Disney as an adult?
Because I think Disney movies actually have a lot of lines that they know that parents are going to get, but it just goes right over the kid's head. And then it's like, it's fun to watch Disney movies as an adult. I still do all the time. And I guess it's nostalgic for me. So maybe someone else wouldn't like it as much, but I've just always really enjoyed Disney.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing about your Disney dreams, Danielle.
Oh, and I wanted to be a Disney princess, and I interviewed with Disney whenever we went out to California, but they had some weird loophole where if you didn't want to live in their dorms, then you had to be there earlier. And I'm like, no, I'm going to be there in August, but I'm going to be married. I'm not going to live in Disney dorms after I just got married. And they're like, oh, yeah, we have to remove you from consideration then. So darn.
Yeah, poor Danielle.
And then I never auditioned to be Tinkerbell because I'm not tall enough to be any of the other princesses.
Yeah, I was also going to point that out, which is funny. Poor Danielle's too short to be the other princesses.
But I could have been Tinkerbell and zipline down into the park. That would have been cool.
That would have been cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, too bad, so sad.
I know.
Well, thanks for sharing your Disney stuff.
Anytime.
Yeah.
Disney, Taylor Swift, marijuana, like I'll come back and talk about all my favorite things.
Yeah, and maybe do some marijuana and then watch some Disney.
Yes.
We should have a Danielle Disney watch party.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that wraps us up for today. We talked a lot about marijuana. We started talking about it, and then we kind of kept going and
realized, we could
talk about that for hours and hours. And then we talked a little bit about quitting and some of the personal stories from Danielle and some of the things that we think are good to do while you're quitting and keep in mind and don't worry so much about burning bridges as much as being honest and helping people out and also like that whole fear of burning bridges. Like if you're a good employee and you have right reasons for quitting, then what bridge are you really going to burn? And like, do you really need that recommendation from that person, that kind of thing? But also recognizing that not everyone has the privilege to do those types of things. And some people are safer about that because they, aren't as financially able to make those quote unquote risks, and how risky those things really are obviously can vary a lot based on your situation. So I wanted to recognize that. And then lastly, we ended up with a little bit of Disney from Danielle. Well, Danielle, do you have any challenges that you think would be good for our audience today?
Maybe watch a Disney movie this weekend.
Yeah, I think that's a fun challenge. So a nice little lighthearted, go watch a Disney a Disney show, a Disney movie, and also now Disney has expanded. Danielle alluded to earlier, Disney owns the Star Wars franchise. They own Marvel as well. I can't remember.
Yeah, I
I
think
think
so.
they own Marvel. So anything underneath that Disney umbrella,
Yes.
go check out something Disney and let us know what you guys watch. Let us know in the comments.
And maybe there happen to be some synchronicities in the movie you randomly decide to watch where
There
you
you go.
notice.
Yeah, that's a good point. And if those come to mind, make sure to let us know. You can comment on whatever platform you're watching on right now. You can contact us. Go to helpfulforlife.com and hit the contact us button in the top right. I would love to hear some stories, especially if they involve any of the other things we've talked about. But also, if you just got a good Disney story, feel free to share these things with us. We'd love to share those with everybody else. So we appreciate it very much, and you guys have a wonderful Friday.
TGIF.
TGIF.